You need your brain. Simple as that. No ifs, ands, or buts. There are lots of body parts that people can do just fine without, but your brain is not one of them. And you want that brain to function at optimum level as much as possible and for as long as possible. And it's so obvious that I don't think you need me to tell you why. In fact, if you don't already know how important a brain is, then yours might not be running optimally. Unfortunately, a study came out recently that predicted that 42% of people 55 and over will get dementia at some point in life. Now, part of that is just that we're living longer, which many of us would consider to be a good thing, generally speaking. But the downside of that means that the longer we live, the higher the chance of getting, well, pretty much everything, including neurodegenerative disease. But the good news is that there are some tasty foods out there that can reduce your chances of dementia. They won't reverse it, and they're not a get-out-of-jail-free card, but they can delay or possibly even prevent it. And since they taste good anyway, well, heck, let's get on with it, right? The good old Mediterranean diet, it turns out, along with the DASH diet, have both been identified as being beneficial for brain health. So some nutritionists with high-functioning brains have sort of amalgamated some of the best of both diets to optimize them for brain health. And just to make it convenient and easy to remember, and just because we seem to love things with silly yet memorable acronyms, the new super diet for brain health has been christened, wait for it, the MIND diet. Yep, the MIND diet, which stands for Mediterranean/DASH Intervention for Neurodegenerative Delay. Cute. But still, at least one study has shown that the MIND diet can reduce your cognitive age by 7.5 years. The study, which followed 900 people for 4.5 years, found that strict adherents who further avoided red meat, processed sweets, and fried foods reduced their Alzheimer's and dementia risk by 53%, while those who were less strict still managed to reduce their risk by 35%. I mean, that's not too shabby. It probably wasn't too heavy a lift to find the common ground between the Mediterranean and DASH diets, as both of them agree on a lot of foods, and also because a lot of what I call the usual suspects show up in both diets. I say usual suspects because it seems like every time a new study comes out that identifies a handful of really healthy foods, it just seems like you keep seeing a lot of the usual suspects coming up again and again and again. I mean, as I often like to say, it all comes back to leafy greens. I mean, you'd be hard-pressed to find a list of healthy foods that doesn't actually lead with leafy greens, right? And this one is no exception, so it should come as no surprise that your brain loves leafy greens. In this case, the MVP nutrient is our old friend folate, which has been shown to reduce brain atrophy, and let's face it, nobody wants that, right? So, eat your greens. In fact, if I had one piece of reliable nutrition advice for every person in every situation, you know what I would say? Yep, you guessed it. It all comes back to leafy greens. So dig in. I mean, seriously, every time you see a new list of the foods that are the most beneficial for pretty much everything, every time, the first thing on the list is it seems like it's always leafy greens. I mean, you just can't go wrong here. It all comes back to leafy greens, including protecting your brain. So let us eat. The next usual suspect makes me really happy. You know what your brain loves? Would you be surprised if I said caffeine? When I was young, I was one of those kids who spent way too much time at the coffee house or Denny's or whatever, getting way more than my money's worth on a cup of black coffee, yakking with my equally caffeinated friends, solving all the world's problems with the possible exception of our own social awkwardness. The legal speed probably didn't make us any less unusual, but it definitely promoted a lot of brain activity, and research has verified that. Caffeine improves memory and cognitive function, and now my life is complete. Speaking of cognitive function, the next one did surprise me a little. It turns out that cognitive function is actually supported by poultry. Who knew? I mean, I've always loved the stuff, but I had no idea it was so good for the brain. But cool. So don't be chicken of chicken. Learn my bone broth recipe and load up. Another welcome surprise is citrus, which apparently increases blood flow to the brain. Older people who eat citrus every day are 23% less likely to develop dementia. I guess it's time to dust off that old lemon chicken recipe from the 80s, unless I can do it from memory, huh? Self-fulfilling prophecy there, right? As it turns out, citrus fruits are a member of the next club on the list, which is colorful fruits and veggies. In case you didn't get the memo, all those compounds that give fruits and veggies their color are also really good at preventing diseases in general. Those colorful compounds are carotenoids, which are a type of phytochemical, along with polyphenols. Polyphenols are your best friends when it comes to fighting disease. If it helps you remember, phytochemicals fight disease, including everything from cancer to diabetes and yay, brain food. They also protect your brain. There are more reasons to eat colorful veggies and fruits than I have time for in this video, but take my word on this one. Eat as many colors as you can, or as some people like to say, eat the rainbow. But just a word of caution, candy doesn't count. There's one candy in particular with a similar sounding catchphrase that is famous for its colorful appearance, and it contains some of the worst and most dangerous and harmful food additives in the industry that can do some serious damage to your cell function, your genes, your reproductive system, and pretty much everything. So, despite what some marketers want you to believe, artificial colorings are bad news. The naturally occurring pigments in fruits and veggies are some of the best things you can eat, but fake colors can get you really sick or kinda dead. So, when people say you should eat the rainbow, you need to use your brain, or at least whichever parts of your brain that are still functioning. I think both of my brain cells are pretty much on board with that. Now, within that broad category of colorful fruits and veggies, berries are another standout. In addition to all the benefits of their buddies there on that list, berries are especially loaded with compounds that support neuroplasticity, brain cell function, cellular health while reducing inflammation. Berries be very, very good to me. Another usual suspect, and probably the first thing that comes to mind when you hear somebody say brain food, is, fish. You might have thought that was just an old wives' tale, but I'm here to tell you that some of those old wives were pretty smart. Fish is rich in omega-3 fatty acids, which has been shown time and time again to support brain health, along with like a million other things. So that's why fish, and especially fatty fish, is one of those usual suspects that just seems to show up on every list. And there's a reason for that, and rightly so. Speaking of healthy fats, our old friend olive oil also makes the list thanks to its anti-inflammatory and antioxidant qualities. Another food high in healthy fats, another one of my favorites, another member of the usual suspects club. Are you sick of hearing me talk about them all the time? One of my favorites, nuts. Not only are nuts associated with reducing all-cause mortality, they are high in ALA fatty acids, which support brain function in particular, plus their super high polyphenol content has been shown to reduce the risk of dementia. So go nuts with your nuts. I don't know why people still seem surprised that chocolate makes like every usual suspect list. No, I'm not talking about that cheap chocolate bunny stuff or the junk you get out of a vending machine. I'm not going to list names here, but you know who you are. The stuff most people think of as chocolate is loaded with refined sugars and artificial chemicals like colorings and weird emulsifiers and all that business. No. I'm talking about high quality dark chocolate, or even better still, unsweetened cocoa powder, or if you want the super duper uber healthy thing, just raw cacao nibs, which are delicious on so many things. I eat them pretty much every day. High quality chocolate is one of the usual suspects on every list of healthy foods, and rightly so. Phytochemicals and fiber. Yes, fiber. Yeah, chocolate has fiber. and healthy fats, and a little bit of theobromine and caffeine. Yeehaw! Life is good! Okay, this one might rattle a few cages, but one of the best things you can do for your brain is to eat more beans and legumes. It almost makes me mad that people dunk on beans. As if you needed one more reason to believe in the health benefits of beans, it turns out that they are also high in just the very vitamins and minerals that reduce the risk of dementia. I guess someone has to stick up for beans. It might as well be me. So, yay, beans. Another one that gets a little bad press is our old friend, the egg. The poor egg has probably received more mixed messages and unfair bad press than anything, and I'm not going to get into the weeds on any of that right now. Maybe later. But for now, let me just tell you that whatever else they are, eggs are high in choline, which has been shown to improve neuronal communication and reduce inflammation. If you've been listening to the anti-egg crowd, all I can tell you is do your own research. As for me, I am very much in the pro-egg camp. I'm also a big fan of runny yolks, which is a whole other level of eggdom and controversy, and there is no shortage of people who consider them fighting words. All I can tell you is that you haven't really lived until you've broken a yolk in a bowl of Asian noodles or dipped your toast in a mess of gooey goo with a splash of hot sauce. I'm going to stick to my gooey guns on the goo. And just to prove my point, I'm going to point out that those of us who eat our gooey egg yolks apparently have healthier brains, so it seems to me that we must be right. Right? Of course right. And last but not least, and another one of the usual suspects, whole grains. Now, I personally don't give myself a free pass on grains, and I don't suggest that you do either. Overconsumption of grains, and especially refined white grains, can definitely contribute to metabolic syndrome, cause inflammation, and hasten insulin resistance by way of spiking your blood sugar. On the other hand, a lot of blue zones don't seem to have a problem with all the white pasta. I mean, for me, I try to be a little sensible. Most of the grains I do eat are whole and heirloom grains like einkorn and buckwheat. But that being said, my wife makes the most amazing sourdough that I will never turn down. And I really can't resist a good pasta dish once in a while. I think there might still be a lot that we don't know on this one. Meanwhile, I just try to moderate and I try to focus on the grains that I think are a little healthier, and I generally think of white flour as a treat rather than a staple. Your mileage may vary. And as long as I'm on the subject of things that might be less good for you, some foods are suspected of being not so good for brain health. Again, a different list of usual suspects that should surprise no one includes red meat, refined sugars, ultra-processed and deep-fried foods. I still eat a little of all those things, at least on occasion, but sometimes the poison is in the dose. You gotta live your life, right? I mean, maybe the trick is that you mostly eat the things that'll keep you alive long enough to enjoy the exceptions. Does that make sense? Okay, but either way, now you have your shopping list for the weekend. Make sure you load up on leafy greens, coffee, chocolate, poultry, fish, eggs, beans, nuts, colorful fruits and veggies, and particularly citrus and berries, olive oil, and depending on your perspective, maybe some whole grain something, but let's just call that optional for now. And the best thing about it is that all those things are delicious. As I've said before, eat something delicious and you win. Because why? Because you make the food and then the food makes you. One thing about keeping your brain healthy is that it is absolutely delicious. Enjoy it. But for now, it is time to wrap up this video. Thanks so much for watching. I hope to see you next time. Ciao.